Bad News Brown breaking it down. Today I'm gonna hit y'all up with a little town business, some Oakland history. I'm gonna be speaking about the development of the drugs and hoods throughout the city of Oakland. And if you're new to my channel, you may have found me from a video I created regarding why there's no Crips and Bloods in Oakland, which I break down because of the Panthers laying a foundation around the same times like cities like LA and Chicago had gangs, which is the truth. And I see that video got a lot of positive feedback. I definitely appreciate it. And in that video, I also mentioned that I would break certain things down year by year if need be. So I guess this video can classify as one of those videos. So here it go. So now in the era I'm talking about, it's pretty much going to be late 70s into the 80s. Mid to late 70s into the 80s. Kind of like the aftermath of the Black Panther Party, as I'll put it. So now keep in mind, there was no crack. Now, you had what was called ether base. And ether base was made notable by the comedian Richard Pryor when he had an accident with the ether base, and he actually spoke about it on his stand-up. I suggest y'all go watch that. But at that time, y'all, it was no crack. I mean, of course, it was drugs. You had cocaine, heroin, of course, weed, liquor, and the psychedelic drugs. But it was no crack at that time. You had hoods, neighborhoods, but you didn't really have turfs and blocks yet. It wasn't no curb serving yet. You had what basically drug houses, dope houses. Like how we talk about traps now, the trap right now, that's basically what it was, trap houses back then. So you had, your pimp players and hustlers, and you had your drug dealers, which was either cocaine or heroin. And you had a few of those. Of course, you had some notable ones. One notable one being Felix Mitchell, who obviously became one of the main ones. But and another thing, again, this era could be better identified is, I would say, the beginning of the bosses. The reason why Oakland was called the land of the bosses. This is the beginning of the dope era. So a lot of things was forming at that time, being that the Panthers wasn't around, unfortunately. So the dope game was allowed to flourish. And I mentioned that in my prior video regarding how the drugs pushed the line after the Panthers. And this here is a prime example. This is like the beginning of that time because, as I mentioned, you already had drugs, heroin and cocaine and all that, but you didn't have crack yet. So this is the beginning of that, the formation of that, as I'll put it. So again, you had Felix Mitchell, and there was a few other notables that I ain't gonna mention in this video, but you had Fee, and one of the significant things regarding Felix Mitchell, other than the money he made, is that, okay, on a side note, the movie New Jack City, see, when I was coming up, I was under the impression, or word was going around, that New Jack City, well, parts of New Jack City, Nino Brown character was based off Felix Mitchell. By the way, he took over the Carter, because Felix Mitchell took over 6ix9ine Village and put it down. A lot of people don't really recognize that Fee another side note come up out of West Oakland to put it down on 6ix9ine Village. And this is due to the fact that back then, the majority of the black people lived in West Oakland, was from West Oakland. And I also did a video regarding the oldest hood in Oakland. I strongly suggest you watch that. But it's no surprise that him, and even now to this day, a lot of OGs, not all, but a lot of OGs or whatever, come up out of West Oakland. That's in the East now. So anyway, I just find that interesting, but that's on the side note. But back to the New Jack City thing, yeah, the way Fee put it down, because Fee had a machine. 6ix9ine Village, it was a machine. And he was one of the first to introduce the curb serving, if not the first. And I could be wrong, don't quote me, because again, he wasn't the only player on the board. You understand? Hell, he even had disagreements with the Panthers, as we know, towards the end of the party, but for the longest, they was saying, I was under the impression that New Jack City was based off him, the way that whole Carter situation. But in recent times doing this YouTube, I've been hearing it was based off some guys out of Detroit, two brothers or whatever. So y'all let me know about that in the comments, man. But yeah, man, this was I'm gonna say the pre-dope era, although it was definitely drugs in the beginning of the boss era. I'm gonna say that, the land of the bosses in Oakland. And Oakland went on, of course, to be called names like Cokeland, City of Dope, and the like. And a lot of that, in my opinion, because don't get me wrong, you had drugs in every inner city, but a lot of it could have possibly been due, like Oakland probably got hit with a double whammy just to ensure the neutralization of the Black Panther Party. Just give y'all something to think about. But it definitely gave way to a lot of bosses, the boss area in Oakland. And this is before crack. Again, like I said, this is when you had trap houses. It wasn't hella dope spots. You just had dope houses throughout the town. So it was ether base that they had, which again, the famous Richard Pryor, he had his run with that ether base, and he spoke about it in his stand-up. Go check it out. And you had the usual drugs, cocaine and heroin and whatnot. But I'm definitely gonna be breaking it down a little bit more for y'all in my next video, when we enter into the dope era, as I should call it, enter the dope era. No, but all jokes aside, and I definitely ain't glorifying this lifestyle, and I'm just telling some Oakland history, kind of just giving y'all the development of the streets of Oakland and why things are the way they are, even now to this day, up until this day. So this is just a little taste right now, a little smidget, again, from the mid to late 70s into the 80s.